Good evening, everyone. Just give us a few minutes. We'll start shortly. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on a holiday. We hope to be able to answer as many questions as you have. Do put your questions in the Q&A box, and we'll take them throughout the conversation that Pramath and I have. It helps us if the questions are in the Q&A box. We're able to look at them and answer them as we go along. It would be good to know where you're joining us from. Maybe that you can put in the chat. Pramath and I are both located in Delhi, but it would be interesting to know which part of the country you're joining us from. Okay, interesting. We have Ishan Joshi from Sydney, Hyderabad, Chandigarh. Someone else joining us from Delhi. Okay. Someone from Gurgaon. Okay. I think we can start since we've kept the webinar only at about 45 minutes now. So to begin with, thank you so much, Pramath. I don't think I need to introduce Pramath to anyone, but I will say a few words. Pramath is the Dean for the Harappa School of Leadership, as well as the founder and chairperson for Harappa Education. He's also the founding Dean of ISB and the chairman of the Board of Trustees for Ashoka University. We are here today to talk about a very, very interesting topic. How do you learn and how do you sort of include application while you're learning? And that's something that's becoming more and more critical as we are sort of moving ahead, especially in higher education. Pramath, anything you'd like to start off as a starting thought?
Right. I think the importance of learning something as a skill has never been greater than it is today. We are constantly having to learn new skills, new ways of doing things. And what often tends to happen is that to teach new skills, we use the methods that are used typically to teach in a traditional classroom, which is a teacher standing in front of a class on a whiteboard and teaching and lecturing and talking and explaining concepts and ideas. And while that's important to raise awareness for people to learn the concepts and the frameworks, the real skill building doesn't happen till you actually start to apply what you're being taught and in a way practice what is being preached to you. It's only when you take an idea and you actually implement it and you see how it works, what works and what doesn't work, that you really start truly learning that skill. So this is something that traditional learning, we would go into a lab and do some small experiments. But now when you are doing adult learning and you are learning on online, for example, in the kind of programs we run, your life becomes your lab. Your workplace becomes your living lab. And you learn something in this webinar today, and you can actually go and try it out tomorrow at the workplace. And so this cycle of imbibing knowledge and then applying that knowledge is far more potent when you're trying to learn a skill. It's a little bit like learning how to play a musical instrument. You can get an instruction, you can read it in a book, you can watch YouTube videos, but until you actually try it out, you don't really start learning that skill. And once you try it out multiple times, then it becomes something that you do unconsciously and it becomes a habit. So that's really at the heart of this whole idea of learning by applying, learning by doing. I often say that in the class, in a traditional classroom, you learn to do later. But in these new classrooms, not only do you learn to do, but you also do to learn. Sometimes people call this project-based learning. This is the new buzzword in traditional education, in schools, in colleges. People are doing a lot of PBL. They've even come up with an acronym for it.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So project-based learning has become a big thing. It was always a big thing for people who studied architecture or design, where you were taught stuff, but you're also asked to make stuff, fabricate stuff, draw stuff. So yeah, I think this has now become a...
So I mean, traditionally in the sciences, you were expected to sort of learn by doing, right? I mean, you never sort of, but are you saying now that even management studies are sort of moving towards a space where it's not just theory, whatever theory you are sort of taught, you're supposed to also start using it while you're in class? Is that the new sort of...
Yes. And, in science, if you think about, yes, if you're actually being a scientist, you start to apply what you learned in your education. But labs are not the same as, this whole application thing that we are talking about. The lab is still a very simplified environment. I mean, labs in college and school were much more
controlled environment.
Very controlled environment, and it's more to give you a sense of, you read about these two things coming together to, if you think about chemistry experiments or biology experiments, so more about creating an element where you actually could see physically the phenomenon. And it just increased your belief and understanding. This is similar, but this is actually now real life. This is a real life lab. It's not just a simulated environment. So even in management, simulations have existed. We do have case studies and simulations that have been around for a while. But the advantage I feel of online learning is that you can actually apply it into the real life situation. I'll give you an example. This morning, I was talking to somebody. I've been asked to coach somebody, and this person was asking me for advice on how to be crisper in their communication. Now, I gave him a few tips, and in fact, I gave him quite a few tips. In fact, I have a problem being crisp, like you can see now. And so I told him, firstly, don't worry, I have the same problem. And so he was relieved, I think. But the few tips that I gave him, I told him that, you should now start trying this out today. Our call finished at 9:30. And I said, from 9:30 a.m. today, till we talk to each other next time, why don't you try out these ideas? Every time you have a conversation with somebody, every time you go into a meeting, go try it out. And let's talk about how it went. What did it feel like to try these things out or do things this way? And we'll go from there. Now, I think that's a very powerful way to teach as well. This was, of course, one-on-one, but even in a classroom, I often tell our students, why don't you go try this out? Or why don't you try this out with your friend if you are afraid to try it out at work? It's still real life, right?
So I mean, like, for example, I remember the feedback sessions that we do at the accelerated management program, how we encourage them to sort of learn that and then go back and try it in their office space and then come back and tell us what worked and what didn't, right? So that's application. You learn a concept, you learn a theory, you understand something, and then you immediately go and do it in not just in a simulated or in a lab environment, but in your real workspace. And that was something you thought of when we put together AMP, is it?
Exactly. And if you take the feedback example, Seema, you can even practice in the work groups that we set up in the accelerated.
Absolutely. That's where the peer feedback forms came out, right?
Correct. And so the case studies and the projects we ask them to work on may be simulations and maybe simplifications of controlled environments of real life. But the work that they're doing together on that simulation is real. And therefore, the feedback that you can practice on each other is real. And often I tell students that actually your project that you're working on, which you're very excited by and you're very engaged in, and you're trying to crack the problem and come up with the best answer and make the best pitch, is actually not so important. What the real learning there is working with people who you don't know, which is often what happens at work. And what we are creating is a safe space for you to really see what your traits are and what your traits aren't, and what do you want, what are you good at, what you're not good at, and how do you deal with conflict, how do you deal with different styles of people on your team. And so it gives you it's a different interpretation of a controlled environment. It gives you a safe space to give each other feedback and so on, which you would not be able to do actually at work. So it's even more applicable because it's a real situation, but it's actually a safe space. So some things you can do which go beyond what actually happens in real life.
Also, just wanted to hear your thoughts on the fact that, AMP is 100% live online program. We all work in environments now which are hybrid. You're in office for a few days and you're offline. I mean, you're working online a few days. How does this practice of application in a completely online class, where a lot of people are actually strangers to you when you start with, but you start interacting, working, and applying things and seeing, you are getting better marks than somebody else, or your project is getting better feedback. How does that really sort of work in real life? Because otherwise it could just be a lecture where you just come in here 2 hours and you go back, right? But that's not what we do at the accelerated management.
No, of course not. I think we picked faculty who are very invested in making sure that they interact with students, that they give them tasks and projects and case studies and assignments, that they then ask them to report back. There's a discussion around the reflections that you have based on what you've gone out and applied. You remember in some of my classes, which you were at, people will come back and say, oh, I actually went out and tried this out and in my presentation to my team, and I had amazing results. Equally, we've had people come back and say, my God, I tried it out with my bosses and it's very difficult, didn't work. What should I do? They're not listening. So it almost becomes a class with the kind of instructors that we have who are practitioners. They're very vested in making sure that whatever we are teaching you, you are able to use and apply. And there's a lot of theoretical stuff that today people can access anywhere. For us, it's also a matter of bringing in people who have the practical knowledge and the lived wisdom to say, listen, I'm going to teach Seema how to give feedback, and I'm going to make sure that that happens, even if I'm in this environment. And honestly, whether it's online or whether it's offline, as long as the faculty and the teachers are committed to making sure you learn, I think they will go the extra mile and they will try out the things to make sure that you do. And I think that's the great thing about the faculty that we have. They are not just there to transmit. They are all people who are passionate about passing on their learning and their wisdom to the next generation.
I mean, this is really the right time for all of you to ask us any questions if you have. But Pramath, maybe a little about the program. I mean, you've done a 1-year MBA. You know, I mean, the traditional MBAs are 2 years, and here we are with a 6-month management program. What does it really help? How does it help? What is it? What is different about it in your own words?
See, I think that there are people, Seema, who have the 2 years and can make that investment and go for a 2-year MBA full time. And there are people who can take a year off only. And that's why some people don't go for 2 years. They just do 1 year. Equally, I think there are people who can't do either a 1 year or a 2 year, which means leaving your job or moving to another city because where you live, you don't really have something that is worthwhile. Remember that MBA program, whether it's 1 day or 1 year or 2 years, is a significant time commitment. And not everybody can make that time commitment. It also has a significant cost associated with not just the financial cost, but also the time, the cost of the opportunity cost of taking a couple of years off to do this. So what I think of this that we are offering is a way for you to have an alternative to an MBA. Especially if you don't have the time and you can't get into, oh yeah, that was the second point I wanted to make, that you can't get into a top school. See, there's no point in doing an MBA from a school that is not aspirational for you, where you think you deserve to go and where you think you can build networks with folks like you. So if you're not able to do, spare the time, the money, and get into a school like that, then this is a great alternative. And that's what I've always said. You know, it's not a substitute, it's an alternative to an MBA for those who can't do the full time for whatever reason. And then because this is an alternative, what we are trying to do is give you the bare minimum that you need to learn and be successful. Now, to arrive at the bare minimum, what we've done is we've done the stripped down version of a full MBA. Just give you the core principles to be a management professional. And we've added a few new subjects that are very critical in today's work environment: product management, data science, and digital marketing. And of course, there's this heavy dose of leadership, which to me is really the set of skills that truly help you succeed, regardless of where you work, what sector, what function. That's how we created Harappa. Those are the thrive skills, the managerial leadership skills that help you succeed wherever you are. So this is a very unique program where it has the bare essentials of the MBA. It has the future skills that are required in a digital world today, the product management, the data science, and digital marketing. And it has the foundational skills that you need as a leader and a manager, which is the Harappa way of thinking. And that comes together as a very unique value proposition in this program.
So we have one question here coming in from Ishan Joshi. Wants to know, is the accelerated management program relevant for people with 10 years of experience and who are working abroad? So I'll answer the second part and Pramath can take the first one. The point we right now in our third cohort, Pramath, we actually have 2 people, one from Dubai and one from Toronto, who actually joined the program. I feel really bad for Farooq because he joins the program at like some unearthly hour.
Absolutely.
But yes, we do have people who joined us from not just different parts of India, by the way, but now in fact, we can actually say we have international students also. But from Ishan's question, is it relevant for someone with 10 years of experience?
So you probably have the data better than me, Seema. What is the highest years of experience that we've seen in our 3 cohorts so far?
So on average, we have people between 5 to 7 years of experience, but we have had people with, like, for example, someone like Farooq is actually almost 12 years of experience. So
Right.
it depends. But largely it's an age group or it's an experience level between 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, but Ishan, we do have people with more than 10 years of experience.
Absolutely.
So that's not an issue. In fact, there are no constraints. We have some people who if I remember correctly, some with more than
Yes,
10.
more
Several.
than 10, in fact, 15 also. We
15.
have,
I was going to say 15. I ran into one of our learners on a flight the other day, Seema.
really?
I was flying into Mumbai, and this person came up to me, and I was taken aback for a minute, but then I saw the face and I said, oh, this is a face from the Zoom calls. And then very sweetly, he was traveling with his son, and
Oh, how nice.
he has a
Okay.
grown-up son, and they had just come back from a vacation. So yeah, so I'm sure he has clearly more than 10 years of experience. So the experience levels is not an issue at all. I think Arun is asking how many numbers in a batch.
So on an average, about between 40 to 50 is what we have. And we run the program every quarter. We may increase it, but right now 40 to 50 is what we aim for. Okay. So,
That's
Pramath, maybe a little bit more about, your courses like we have a leadership track that runs throughout the program. Almost every week we have a leadership class. I just wanted to understand how can we do application, learning and application in the same line when, we are teaching concepts which could possibly not be, they could be abstract. How does one sort of understand?
I teach that track, right? And I can give you an example. So one of the first things I teach in that track is leadership. And I talk about 3 aspects of leadership. Now, each of those aspects, Seema, you can actually start applying the very next day. And in fact, I say that in the class.
I mean, I know that, but I'm sure people are wondering, how do you apply leadership?
Yes, actually, ultimately, leadership comes down to the way you think and then behave and then act. So once I don't want to give away what I teach, so I'm being a bit coy. But for example, one of the things I talk about is the importance of results. Now, how do you, in any interaction, any meeting, any project, any task, any work that you're doing, constantly think about what is it that you're trying to achieve, and that how important it is to have that mindset. And I encourage our students to then start applying that from the very next day. And you've seen it in class that often people come back and say that, hey, I tried this out on something I'm trying, and also I often ask, so, okay, has anybody tried this out? And then people give examples, and those who haven't tried it will listen to somebody else's example and feel a bit of FOMO, saying, I should have tried it out too. If Seema tried it out and it worked for her, then maybe I shouldn't be shy of doing this. Let me remind myself to do that next time. So that's how you get this cycle of learning, applying, even in the leadership track. I gave you earlier the example of crisper communication, or you talked about feedback. These are all part of our leadership track, and they're very, very practical and applicable right from, as they say, Monday morning.
All right, we have 2 more questions from Arun. He wants to understand what is the difference between placement assistance versus guarantee. He says, wants to get a little bit more clarification. He says some upgrade courses have placement guarantee.
Yeah, so I think in the placement guarantee courses, you typically already have a tie-up with an employer. And the employer knows that they want somebody of a particular skill, and programs really train you only in that skill that that employer wants. So they can go ahead and say, listen, we have the jobs. If you can get certification or skilling in this particular domain, you can get this job, right? We don't do that because our program is a general program. We believe that you're good enough, and after you take our courses at the AMP program, you are even better placed to find a job, find your own job, of course, with our help. So the way we do placement assistant is first we prepare you. I was just talking to one of our learners who says that, listen, he's tried many opportunities. He gets opportunities, but he's not able to convert them. So that conversion problem is not that he's not getting opportunities, but he's not able to make the opportunities convert them. And so what we help is with the preparation of the resume. We help you think through your life story. How should you talk about what skills you have? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How can you position yourself better, especially if you're changing disciplines and you're going into sectors in which you actually don't have any prior experience or any prior training. So we help you build your narrative. We then also help you prepare for interviews. We do mock interviews and help you prepare.
Yeah.
We also give you a lot of mentoring in the sense that you can talk to our mentors about different types of jobs, different opportunities, different industries, different sectors, because often we hear, but we don't really, what does it really mean to be a product manager? What does it really mean to be a marketing guy as opposed to a sales guy, and so on. So I think all of that goes in the preparation of you as in terms of improving your chances to convert if the opportunity comes your way. Then we also help you identify opportunities. And that's where the assistance part comes in. We do our bit, but you have to do your bit also to look for jobs, to see where the opportunities are. And we also offer our part. Once you tell us this is what we want to do, this is the kind of stuff I'm looking for, then we also try and use our networks and our connections to find those opportunities for you. So that's what the placement assistance or placement support means. And we promise to continue to support you till you find a job. So that's the guarantee we give you, is the promised support, but we can't guarantee you a job. And I think that's a bit of an unfair promise that a lot of people make, because you never know what factors go into somebody getting a job.
So, which is why, while we have those 5, tracks where you're actually getting training in product, data management, leadership, everything, we also run a career office track throughout the program. So where you are, have access to understanding how to, build your LinkedIn profile, you have access to coaches, mentors, people who are speaking to you. And we also create your own community, your own sort of cohort to help you sort of build your confidence as you go along. So that's really, I think, very unique. And I believe both our cohorts have appreciated that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the second question that Arun wanted to know is, how is it different from upgrad college partnership courses, for example, the product management course, etc.?
Yeah, so those are the college partnership courses are, if you're looking for the college stamp, think of us as our own college. So we are the Harappa College. And you can go to other colleges. Now, we are a new college. So you might say that, I want a more established name. But we would like to throw our hat in the ring for being somebody who is a good and a high quality new college. Now, we don't actually have a product management course, right? So our course is much more general, much broader. And it's relatively shorter, very high quality. It's all live, very high touch. So it's almost like being in a classroom, in an in-person classroom. A lot of the upgrad college courses are recorded content, self-paced content. We do have some stuff that we give you as part of the leadership track, but our whole program is very much through live teaching with very high quality faculty, which I would argue is different from some of the courses that we are also part of upgrad. So I don't want to say that we are better or worse, but I think those are very different programs from what we offer. And it's apples and oranges. This is much more of a live cohort-based program and very little self-paced or recorded content.
We have Stephen from Nigeria. He just wants to understand, should he apply for a supervisory position without being a supervisor before? He says he's acquired the skill set and led a team for 5 years. I think it's a generic question.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think if you've already been leading a team, and if you really acquired the skill set, I think the key thing again, Stephen, to the conversation we were having earlier, how do you make your case? How do you convince people that you're ready for a supervisory role, even if you've not had a supervisor title, you've been actually playing that role. And the way to do that is to demonstrate the skills of a team leader, of a first-time manager. And that's absolutely, you should be able to apply for such roles. The key, like I said, will be in being able to convey and to convince and influence the person at the other end that you're ready for it.
Okay, I'll take this question from Ishan. He wants to know if the program covers corporate finance and business accounting in detail. As I could sense, it covers more topics around product management, and also the classes are in the evening India time. I'll take the second part. The classes are, there is one class every week that happens. It's a fixed day that will happen in the evening. But otherwise, largely, we are a weekend program. So classes start from 9 to 1 o'clock in the morning, Saturday and Sunday. We do, because, to make up the hours, one night, weeknight. And then, of course, the career office will have maybe 1 or 2 sessions, but they are sort of spaced out, but you do have that. Does it cover corporate finance and business accounting in detail? Not, and I'm not sure what you mean by detail. I think, Pramath, we do have now Ankur teaching finance, and we also have Sarthak. So we do have 2 sets of corporate, 2 sets of finance sessions, but maybe you'd like to answer that.
Sorry, the question about...
This is Ishan Joshi. He's saying, does the program cover corporate finance and business accounting in detail?
Yeah, it does. Maybe I don't know where we didn't convey that, but absolutely it does. I think we have a very strong grounding in accounting and finance, Ishan. And when you say in detail, it is the equivalent of what you would learn in a core accounting course or a core finance course in a typical MBA program. And it also covers marketing and strategy and operations as well. So yeah, it does cover enough corporate finance and accounting for you to be able to be able to do whatever a typical MBA does in a day-to-day, in a regular job. Not as an investment banker, but certainly as a manager in any company.
Okay, it would really be great, guys, if you can put your questions in the Q&A box. With the chat, we often tend to lose the questions. But from Pramath, this is Anurag Kumar. He says he works in the ad tech industry. He's worked in various departments with added number of years in responsibilities. I do feel my learning, specifically in business and growth management, is limited. Just curious to know if this is the right course for me to explore.
Yeah, I think, Anurag, this course is created for folks like you who've actually worked in a particular industry and in a particular function within that industry. So you've grown up in a fairly specialized manner, and you suddenly now realize that, hey, there's a lot more to the world than just this. You also may realize that your progress in the career starts to get a bit constrained because you don't have some of the broader knowledge about business and management. So I think this is tailor-made for people like you. And absolutely, this is just the right course for you to explore. It will give you it will help you locate where the work that you do within ad tech and within marketing in general, help you locate that in the larger context of a business. And it will also give you good knowledge of other areas which you might want to explore eventually if you were interested in moving out or growing into a larger role. within the industry. You don't have to leave the industry, but in case you wanted to take on larger roles. So it's actually built for people like you, and it's also built for people like you who don't want to necessarily give up your job and go live in another city and take a 1-year program or a 2-year program. It's built for people like you to do this part-time. Yeah.
Okay. So Pramath, as we are going along, 2 or 3 things that, now we've graduated 2 courses, 2 cohorts. Anything that really surprised you from when you taught all of them, you're now teaching the 3rd cohort. Anything that stands out from their experience?
Yeah, 2-3 things, Seema. I mean, I, like everybody else, I'd heard a lot about online learning. I know it's become very popular, but I also had some misgivings and some skepticism about, will it be as effective as some of the in-person? I'm also, at the end of the day, old-fashioned in-person guy. And it was one thing to be doing the Harappa short courses, but this was a slightly more significant commitment. What I've been really excited and very hugely pleasantly surprised to see is that you see the same kind of transformation happen in our learners as you see in an in-person program from before and after. It's like, wow, even through just a 6-month program, which is weekends and some weekdays only, not full-time 24/7 engagement, you're able to see a shift in people, in their confidence levels, in their abilities, and just their general persona, and they seem transformed, literally. So that's very exciting to see that this can be as high impact as something that is in person full-time. Second, I've also been amazed at the bonding that has happened between the different learners. And I think that's been also surprising. A lot of people are skeptical about the fact that, oh, when you're virtual, people don't turn on videos, and are they going to get... And the third is that we've been able to experiment, Seema, with bringing in some physical element, right? So we do meetups, we do a graduation ceremony in our physical office, and they've been as emotional and as significant as in-person graduation ceremonies at an ISB or an Ashoka or Vedika. And I never expected that, but now people have been bringing their family members and their parents and so on for these graduation ceremonies. So I think all in all, the transformative effect of this program has been very evident and also beyond my expectations. And I can say this slightly may seem like we are boasting because we are the owners and the promoters of this program, but I don't think there's been any learner, Seema, so far who has been dissatisfied with our program, right? I haven't come across anybody who says, oh, I didn't enjoy or didn't learn.
Enjoy the learning.
Yes, from a learning standpoint. And I think that's exciting to see. I think that's another... Most programs will have a few people who are disgruntled and dissatisfied, and they say, oh, that you promised this, but you didn't teach me this, and stuff like that, which hasn't really happened so far. Touch wood.
We've got a question from Praveena. She says she has 4 years of experience in IT and she's worked as a data analyst, but has a great passion for coding. She wants to know, can she transition her career into artificial intelligence? She also wants to do an Ivy League MBA.
All of these things are possible. She also is saying, if I choose an AI career path,
can I start?
Of course. I mean, these are all questions which have the answer yes, yes, and yes. Of course, you can do all these things. You can do whatever you want. None of these sounds really outlandish. So if you are in data and you're a data analyst, AI is the future. You already have the basics of getting into AI. If you're doing data analytics and data science, AI is really about doing this at a much higher level. There's machine learning involved and so on. So I think you have the aptitude and the foundation for getting into AI. And AI career path in starting a company when there's no, not doing it will also help you start the company. Doing it will also help you start the company. I don't see the correlation between those two. So you should feel either way, if you want to do a startup, anybody can do a startup. And of course, the MBA is always a good idea, whether you are starting up or whether you're going to work for somebody else. So all of these things are possible, Praveena, and you should try them out.
All right. One last question, if anyone has anything, or else I think we can sign off. Pramath, we'll just give them 1 minute. Anyone, if you have any question, this is the time to ask.
Yeah, we are at about 10 past 8 and it's Thursday evening on a holiday. So good that people have joined. I think encourage all of you to think about applying to our accelerated management program. It's a great program, and we've had great results from the folks who've gone through it. If you're interested, please write to us. We can also connect you to some of the people who've gone through the program so that you can get a sense of what the program is about and how people have experienced it. And and we are here to answer any questions or queries. And if you think it's not the program for you, but you know somebody who might benefit from the program, then please just give them a referral and tell them to try it out.
Okay. Arun wants to know, where do we see EdSol in the few coming years? You've done a wonderful job in your previous ventures. He's curious.
Well, I hope that EdSol will also be a well-regarded brand for folks like you who are interested in a very alternative, different kind of MBA, that we'd had a great network of alumni. I think programs like I'm very focused on not just the 6 months, but how do you create a tribe of EdSol alums who go out and impact in the world and make a difference, make an impression. Then companies start looking for EdSol alums. EdSol alums hire more EdSol alums, support each other, help each other. So I'm looking to create a community like I've done at ISB or Vedika or Ashoka. And I'm very confident that that will happen here. I see the signs of that already. We have already built networks with about 100 alums and learners now at EdSol. That number will grow exponentially over time. So yeah.
And we've also experimented, and which you probably will never see in any other management course, which is a 1 year or whatever, where they don't do this. But we had batch 2 and batch 3 actually take some classes together. And it's really exciting to see how, they worked on a project together, and then it was in entrepreneurship. And the faculty actually thought that their idea was so good that they've been invited to, sort of pitch it to one of the incubators. So that's also our way of building, a network that is not just your cohort, but a cohort above and below. So, you continue to sort of meet more and more people who take the program and understand what it stands for. Right, Pramath?
Yes. And I think that this is a movement. All institutions are really movements, is the way I see it. They're not static. It's not the 6 months. It's the journey. And I think a lot of what we are trying to do is, if everybody's talking about lifelong learning, then I would expect that EdSol learners will keep coming back to EdSol. And that's what we are there for. And it's easier to do that when you have something that is built purposely online, with a view to saying, yeah, this is your first 6-month association with us, but there may be many, many associations, sometimes 6 months, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes 1 weekend, sometimes in person, sometimes online, sometimes self-paced, sometimes live. That's what we want EdSol to be, is to be your learning partner for life. And on that, I think we can sign off.
Yes, we can. Thank you so much, everyone. I've already put in a lot of information on how you can reach out to us. I'll put it one more time. If you're interested, please do speak to us. Our applications for cohort 4 are open. Reach out to us and we'd be happy to sort of, give you more clarifications and more answers that you're seeking. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Seema.
Thank you.